right, well, the goal of the interview is I am hoping to learn from your long-term relationship because I've always noticed and respected your relationship with Grandma, and so I prepared some questions, but overall I just hope to really just learn from how you handled your relationship with Grandma. So, all right, so how about we start out with the basics? How did you meet Grandma?
Oh, well, that was a senior day at Marion College, senior high school, and I was a senior in college, and basically Uncle Bill was already dating Marilyn, so I would just there to be an escort for Sarah to help her on, on the senior day. And we hit it off real well and just kept, I can't really say about going together because senior day was almost towards the end of the year. I went home for the summer, but we rode back and forth. Next year I went on Asbury. I just kept riding.
Oh.
Sometimes it could get together. Kind of a long distance relationship to start.
Okay, so how long was it before you knew that you wanted to marry her?
Well, let's see. We probably went together a year before we knew that we were really serious.
Okay.
I went a year at Asbury and Grandma did her freshman year at Marion. By the end of that summer, the following summer, we wanted to get married. That was back in the old-fashioned days when you had to ask your dad for permission to marry his daughter. So I did that. It's kind of a formality type thing, but it's interesting.
Okay. And so, what would you say about her or your guys' relationship that you knew that you wanted to commit to her for a lifetime?
That I wanted to commit to her?
Yeah.
I think you've probably heard that old, I credit it to Billy Graham, but someone else may have said that his wife may have been the first one to say that we never considered divorce. Divorce was not a possibility. And then he'd smile and say, murder sometimes we thought of, but not divorce. And that was the basics of our relationship. Divorce just was not an issue. It was not a question. You knew that if things weren't going well, you'd better do something about it because there was no changing. And I think that was a good basis to build a marriage on.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good solid understanding to start with. There's kind of a secondary part that goes with that, too, for me. And that is that I had been praying that the Lord would show me the right person and lead me to the right partner. And so when things worked out, and Grandma Sarah said yes to me, I had to assume that it was in God's will. And so even if even if we would have disagreements, I could never say, "Oh, I wished I'd never married you," because I was sure that it was God's choice. And so that kind of helped to eliminate some of the problems too. You could never say to yourself, "Oh boy, I really made a mistake. I didn't choose right," because you were sure that God had helped you to choose.
Mm. So, was there any significant hardship that you guys kind of had to work through, and how did you do it?
Well, there are always adjustments because you come from different families, different styles of living. And again, the basic thing was you just knew that there was no way out, there was no changing it. So you just knew you had to make the adjustments and give a little on each side. If it's always one person doing the giving, then you do run into trouble. But if you realize that each one has to give a little, make the adjustments, it eventually works out.
Good.
I guess there's another part to that too. That is, you make up your mind to do the things and to display the attitudes that will make your partner, your spouse, happy, because that's the quickest and surest way to your own happiness. If you take the selfish approach and say, "Well, it's up to them to do what I want and make me happy," then you both end up unhappy. But if you take the approach that I will do everything that I can to make her happy, then I end up happier myself.
Mm. So if there was one thing that you really wanted to teach me and wanted to make sure that I found in the man that I might spend my life with, what would you say it should be?
It's hard to nail it down to one thing. The first thing I think is to be sure that you're doing your very best to find God's will. That you're asking Him for help to make the right choices. It is possible to let other things get in the way. If you find somebody who's good looking and attractive and all of that kind of stuff, you might tend to go for that. But if you really seriously are asking for God to show you the right person, and you mean it, I think that's the first step. One thing that I would encourage a person to do. And the second one is like we started out with, that when you do make the commitment, it's a forever thing. And you just make up your mind to that. It doesn't mean that everything's going to go right and that you're always going to agree. But you've already decided that if you don't agree, you better do something about it because there's no way out. There's no way to change.
Right.
So I would think that would be one of the most important principles. Realize that it's a lifetime commitment, then do your best to make the other person happy. And in the process, you find your own best happiness. Of course, the problem would come is if the other person did not take that approach and they always wanted you to make them happy but weren't willing to give on anything themselves, that might run into some trouble. But I'm just assuming that both partners will take that attitude.
Right.
If I can make my spouse happy, that will be the best happiness for me. If that makes any sense to you.
I like that. It makes a lot of sense. And so, what do you think is the purpose or the value in having a long-term relationship like that?
So what was the question on that now? What?
Like, what do you think is the value in having a long-term relationship like that? Why do you think people should get married at all?
Well, I think it's God's design, marriage and a family. That doesn't mean that a person who doesn't get married is not doing God's will. I don't mean that. But I think basically it is God's design for people to get married. Therefore, it's wise to search for that relationship. Again, though, always asking for the Lord to help you. And if the Lord doesn't lead in that direction and you don't find someone, why you can still have a fulfilled life. But I do think that it's God's best design is for a man and a woman to live together, till death do us part, that kind of thing.
Right.
And for Grandma and me, there was just a special satisfaction in being able to say to one another, I've been faithful to you all my life.
Mm.
That was really meaningful, especially as the years build up. We got close to 50 years. To be able to look at her and say, "You're the only one I ever really wanted." That was really special.
So you do think it's important for people who are looking for an intimate relationship to seek out one person instead of trying to find that satisfaction in multiple people?
Well, I think so. I don't know. If a person does have a lot of boyfriends or girlfriends, I don't see a problem with that. I don't think there should be any intimate relationship outside of marriage.
Right.
But some people date a lot before they find the one that they're willing to commit to. I didn't, but some people do, and I don't condemn that. Don't have a problem with that. But, I do have a problem with those who say, well, you got to try out a lot of different relationships with a lot of different people, and by that they mean get intimate with a lot of different people before you can make up your mind. I don't think that's correct.
Right. Okay. So, what do you think was the most important part of your relationship with Grandma? Something that just made it all worth it all the time.
Well, there are several really important things, and part of it is the being intimate with each other and compatible that way. But Grandma always had the same goal as me, wanting to find and do the will of the Lord. And so that was kind of a unifying factor. There was never any kind of a thing where she would say, "Oh my goodness, here we are in another small church and it's so hard and we're not making enough money." There's never anything like that. We both knew that we were put together to serve the Lord, and she accepted that. Didn't demand a lot of material things. So I thought that was important. But being on the same page with our goals.
So how did you strengthen each other in your relationships?
How did we what?
Strengthen each other.
Oh. Well, she was a good pastor's wife and a good person in the parsonage as well as, just partners together in marriage. She did real well with that kind of work. And so that was a help to me. When she did get her nursing degree and went into the medical care, she was always looking for ways to help the people there, not just physically because she was a nurse, but she would help them with their spiritual problems, and then sometimes she would say, you need to go see this person and talk to them. They need some help. And so, we just work together like that. We're always going at cross purposes for one another.
And so, did your relationship change after you had kids?
Let's see. Not really a lot. Of course, we were busier. Always had something to do to take care of the family. But it was not an interruption because we both knew we wanted to have children. She enjoyed having children, so I would guess I would say it didn't really change a whole lot. I never seem to run into that problem where, they portray it on TV sometimes. The husband says, well, since we have kids, you never pay attention to me anymore. I never really run into that. And I think Grandma did her best to make sure that didn't happen.
So, what would you say would be something you think every person should try to strive for in their relationship to make sure that it keeps going and you make sure to get through all the conflicts?
Well, I do think that it's important to share your religious values together, that you don't go it alone, even as a Christian. You have times of reading the Bible together, you get it with the kids, praying together, and be sure you're on the same page, especially in that area.
Okay. And this is branching off a little bit of the interview, but I was just curious if you could share with me one of your favorite memories of Grandma, or one or two.
One of the favorite memories?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I was very proud of her for getting her nursing degree at when she was 50 years old. She gave up her college career because we got married after she'd only gone to school and married college for 1 year. And we went into a very little church where we lived right in the basement of the church. And the Sunday school rooms were our bedrooms. And so she did not have a chance to finish her education. But after the kids were pretty well grown up, not completely, but by the time she was between 45 and 50, she started going back to school. And she got her degree. And I was very proud of her for that.
Mm-hmm. And so what was something that you made sure to always do together, like a hobby or something that you always made sure to do with her?
But, one of the most important things to her, and it worked out well, was just going out to eat together. She really enjoyed that. Of course, partly that's because it was easier, you didn't have to cook, you didn't have to do dishes. But she just enjoyed that. And so we did that quite a lot. Especially, I guess, there towards the end, we were doing it once or twice a week. Finding a place to go out, to just sit together and talk about problems or talk about good things and enjoy eating together. She always liked special times of going out, like staying overnight in a hotel too, but we didn't get to do that on any kind of a regular basis. It's too expensive. But she did enjoy that.
Okay, and
Just was a time to be special, I guess.
yeah. And I know that things got really hard near the end, and she didn't. I just remember her not always feeling like the grandma I remembered.
Yeah.
How did you fight through that? Because I really respected how you didn't take her to any special home. You just wanted to take care of her and keep her with you.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that just helped me in that way is because she had worked in nursing homes, I knew that she did not want to go there. And so I just figured I would do my very best to prevent that from happening. And as it worked out, I was able to. We did get hospice to come in and help there at the end, but it was quite a while where I just had to take care of her. And I was actually happy to do that, just to prevent from having to go to a place I knew she wouldn't like.
Okay.
Again, I think towards the end, it was still a matter of trying to make the other person happy, trying to do whatever it would take to give them the most happiness. And when you do that, you end up getting the most happiness your own self.
And so, before you met Grandma, did you feel incomplete, or did you feel like there was something missing?
Yeah, but I equated that quite a lot. Not so much with personal feelings, but with the idea if I'm going to be a pastor, I need a pastor's wife. And so I did feel that I needed to find a wife, find someone who could help me in the ministry. I guess it wasn't so much personally feeling incomplete, it just seemed like professionally I would be incomplete without a wife to help in ministry.
So, when you married Grandma, what was your feelings about that? How did you feel on your wedding day?
Yeah, I just looked forward to us working together in a church. She had musical talents. Now, towards the end, she didn't use them as much. But she sang. She would do solos. She started learning to try to learn and play the piano, but that never worked out. Never had time to finish that.
Well, I don't remember her singing.
Yeah, see, I know towards the end that she didn't do that. She did not have as strong a voice as her sister Ruth, but the four girls would sing together, Ellen and Sarah and Edith. They were pretty good singing, but after we got married, they didn't get together very much for that. But she just used her talents to help the ministry, and then of course her artistic ability. I didn't know about that when we got married. I mean, I didn't know that she was that good, but then she painted that mural that's in the basement of the church, and that just astounded me. How can you image that in your mind and know what to do make it all come together. So your artistic talents and Elizabeth's, you know, it's just beyond my grasp. I just don't understand how you guys can do that.
Well, I can't get up in front of a congregation and preach, so.
I could.
Well, you might if
I'd
you
love to.
practiced it.
They won't let me though
But
because I was too political.
I don't see how you can get those concepts in your mind and make them come together. I watched your little video of flower pot painting, and it just seemed to me like you were dabbing the brush here and there and everywhere, and before you knew it, a picture came out. You know, it just astounding.
Okay, so if you wanted to pass one bit of knowledge onto the next generation on how to have a healthy and good relationship that lasts, what would it be?
I would probably go back to the one where you base your relationship on God and His purpose for you. Decide that you're going to do whatever is the Lord's will, and then when He gives you a partner, you do the Lord's will together. And it seems to me like if you put that first, then everything else will fall into place eventually. You have some rough spots along the way, but there's a song. I don't know exactly what the title of it was, but one of the recurring phrases was to find and do the will of God. And I think that's a really important basic principle.
I like that. Okay. Well, you answered all of my questions, so if there's anything else you would like to tell me, I would love to hear other stories you had or anything that you wanted to add.
No, you know, I kind of shied away from the intimate part, but that is a very important part of marriage too. Both, actually, that principle that I talked about, where you try to make the other person happy, that applies not just to your everyday life, but especially to your intimate life. And I think the same thing is true. The harder you work to make the other person happy and enjoy it, then the more you get out of it, the more happier you are. So it's really basically the same principle,
Okay.
even in the intimate part of marriage.
All right. Well, thank you. I think I've learned a lot. I'm glad I got to
I
talk
hope it
to
does
you.
what you need. Yeah.
Oh, you gave me much more than I need. Thank you
Okay,
so
okay.
much.
Yeah.
All right, well, it didn't take as long as I thought it would need, so. But thank you for setting aside your time.
Sure. I'm glad it could help, or I hope I helped.
All right, well, thank you.